Alex, congrats on your move back to the Bay Area. We tried to record this video yesterday. Well, many things went wrong, so let's give it another chance by Zoom today.
So, it's always so much nicer to talk when you're not breathing in and listening to the sounds and smells of the gas-powered vehicles inside of a garage.
The initial objective was actually to talk about your electric vehicle experience and given your background and your YouTube channel about electric vehicles. But you know what? I think it's fair just to start this interview by talking about your profile, about your background, how you arrived to this kind of situation when you became a full-time YouTuber talking about electric vehicles. So when did all of that start?
Well, all of that started in 2012 when I was looking to buy yet another car. I was lucky enough to, make good income. I was a web developer in Silicon Valley for a while, so I was able to afford pretty decent cars. And I was frustrated because I couldn't buy something that was just, everything seemed like it was designed 20 years ago. There was no technology that was happening. Somebody told me, as a matter of fact, someone's kid, a teenage kid, told me about Tesla. And at that time, they just had the Roadster, and I was like, listen, child, I'm not buying a $200,000 car that's electric, which is weird technology. This company is run by this PayPal dude, and on top of that, the company is on the verge of bankruptcy, which it was at that point. But I was so desperate, I actually walked into one of the first Tesla showrooms at the Santana Row here in San Jose, California, and I was like, all right, let me see what's happening. But by then, they've already had a four-door sedan, the Model S. And when I saw the Model S, I had the same feeling as I had later when I saw my very first iPhone, right? I must have one. This is the best thing that happened to this industry, right? So I reserved the car, and I was one of the first 3,000 Model S owners. I got it in 2012, one of the first the original year for it. I even got it signed by Elon Musk. I still kept I still kept the signed visor, and then, of course, at that time, you have to understand, nobody thought that it was cool to have a Tesla. Everybody thought I was an idiot, right? Just bought this electric car from when was the last time a car company made it? Oh, and I also bought some stock at that time, right? And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's insane. So I figured, I'm going to make a Facebook group. That's when Facebook was cool, for other idiots like me. And we're going to do our, have our meetups and drive our stupid cars and everything. And, at first it was small, but, as you now know, with time, after a couple of years, it grew to like 10,000 members. The group is still one of the largest ones on Facebook. I think I have like 50,000 or whatever. So, I decided I'm going to do a 60-second news segment for Tesla news every week, right? Because I already ran another channel about men's fashion and stuff like that. I thought I knew how to turn the camera on. So I got 50 subscribers the first week, but I really liked doing it. I kept doing it, but the channel started getting bigger and bigger. I was featured on Now You Know. That channel was really big, still is at that time. And I realized that, things were going well. Now, at some point, I started to get disappointed with Tesla, and I realized there were other electric cars on the market, so I changed the name and the direction. So I started covering all electric cars. So I started criticizing Tesla, which a lot of people are upset with me, even this week, when we're taping it. And at some point, I was making enough money to barely live on that. And I moved to Sacramento to, also make my expenses, mainly disappear, not having to live in the Silicon Valley. And then things grew and grew, and, I was able to get sponsors and was able to go on trips, which is necessary to run the channel. And I can't believe this. I'm a full-time YouTuber at the age of 45, and I never even thought about this.
When did all of that happen, like moving to Sacramento, becoming a full-time YouTuber?
So I ran the channel for a couple of years as a hobby, and then about 4 years, almost 4 years ago, actually in a couple of weeks, is when I decided I'm going to move to Sacramento because I had a house there. I sold 2 Teslas that I had and just kept my vault. Really tighten up my belt. And, that's when I became a full-time YouTuber. It was rough for about a year or so. and then I started doing okay. Then the COVID hit, but overall, man, honestly, this is the best job I've ever had because this is my hobby. And if you would pay me just enough for me to have an apartment and a car and food and and health insurance and never be rich, I would do it for the rest of my life.
Oh, so you definitely, I don't see you regretting about your decision. And like we discussed, yesterday, but I think I really want you to repeat that. So you said you work like around the clock. Is that true?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. This year, I started forcing myself into taking one day off per week, which is Thursday. Is it really a day off? No, because I'll still take meetings and stuff like that. And it's really mainly so I can, now that COVID is over, right, to see my friends and family and so forth and maybe recharge a little. But before that, if you love, this is the definition of, when you love what you do for a living, is that you don't need days off, because days off from what? This used to be my hobby. I used to do this, before going to work, after going to work, during the weekends, because I love it so much. So that's the definition. I don't need a vacation. I don't need a day off at all. So I've last 2 Thursdays was a failure. I ended up working anyway because I wanted to do an interview here and hang out with another YouTuber there. But a lot of it is also a lot of fun for me. So yeah, no days off on vacations. And by the way, I travel so much that what am I going to do during my vacation? Go to, another location? No.
Like in your YouTube career, and I know you're kind of an official ambassador of LA Auto Show, if I understood correctly, right? So many things, many events are happening with you or around you. Can you share maybe a couple of things which will stay in your memory and you're going to tell your grandchildren?
Well, I think it's last year when I actually hosted the Electric Car Award Show for the LA Auto Show on a big stage. It was definitely, for the books. I think, meeting some of the people who run this business, from Elon Musk, even though I met him very briefly, but, Mary Barra, the GM of CEO of General Motors, and, Peter Rollison and RJ Scaringe and so many others, just people who are actually, working on this, technology. Yeah, it was really cool and humbling for sure.
Well, I cannot resist. There is one question I really wanted to ask you. So your partnership with Sand Munro. So you don't publish videos anymore. I think you stopped a couple of months ago. So how did all that start and why did it stop actually?
Yeah, so, I started having Sandy on my channel way before he was like really popular. As a matter of fact, he still was kind of hated by the Tesla community because his original sort of climb to fame, even though maybe not positive fame at first, was when he tore down Model 3 and basically exposed how crappy of a build that was. But then he kind of changed. He did another one and said how wonderful it was. But so I started having him more and more and more throughout the years. He became popular, opened his own channel, his business started doing well. And essentially I was having him on like pretty much every week, right? And I produced 2 videos a week. But unfortunately, towards the end of the last year, I've noticed a few things is that, I noticed that he was saying things that, when we were talking outside of the scope of manufacturing, when it comes to manufacturing, he really is an amazing, amazing guest and just a bunch of knowledge. But when we started talking about things that just, comparing cars or some features or making predictions, I've realized that what he said wasn't just a different opinion. I welcome different opinions on my channel. I always disagreed with Sandy at least 50% of things, right? But when it's a false statement, factually false, then it's not okay, right? And I kind of blame myself that I kind of let it go for too long. And unfortunately, I probably maybe should have interfered and maybe should have ended this earlier than I have. And another thing that I realized is that he, and maybe it's not his fault because he kind of was also thrown into this, but, when I am getting paid by a brand that I'm talking about, or a competitor to a brand that I'm talking about, I always disclose that. I mean, all of my sponsors are always listed on the header of my channel. Each video that's sponsored has a visual representation of their logos. I verbally say it, and it's in the description of the video, and there's an explanation how sponsorship works, with my channel. So, I realized that he wasn't disclosing those things. And there was a lot of pressure from Tesla community to kind of not do my channel as much. So, and I don't want to go to too many details, but it was the best decision, I think, even for both of us, is for him to no longer be on my channel. So this is by design. It's unfortunate, but, it is what it is.
Well, in this episode, I will be asking you questions about Volkswagen, Tesla, Electrify America, maybe something else. Full disclosure.
Yeah, so Tesla never sponsored me, of course, but I probably should disclose that I have 70% off of the Roadster whenever it comes out, because I was part of the, so I don't know, I guess I have some financial interest. By the way, I don't invest into any stock at all, so I'm clear there. Electrify America is my current sponsor of my channel, and Volkswagen was a sponsor of my channel last year.
And what was the the sequence here? Did you buy ID4 because Volkswagen was sponsoring, or was it another way around?
Right. So it was definitely the other way around, and I think people think that I got it for free. Actually, I wanted to make sure that I paid for it with my own money, because I wanted to make sure that if I'm promoting something, that it's not a free gift. And I originally was going to buy the ID4 when I just saw it unveiled. And then as I was talking, I was going to some media events with Volkswagen. That's when the idea of them sponsoring my channel came about, because it kind of made sense, because I was already going, I was talking about on my channel that I'm getting the ID4, and then they ended up sponsoring it, or after I already got it, right? I'm leasing it. So and a lot of it is my sponsors. If I have a brand that I don't want to promote, I'm not behind myself, I don't promote it. I don't allow it on my channel. Every single product that I promote, I'm pretty much either customer of or a supporter of. So for example, sometimes nonprofits would advertise and raffle off some, like a car or whatever. Obviously, I shouldn't be, and I don't participate. I don't buy their tickets, because if I win, that would look really bad. But I support their cause, which is usually fight against climate change. So that's how it came around, not with just the Volkswagen, but with pretty much other brands.
Let's start with basics. You said you lease the car, so why that?
Math. That's why. So if you want to get a brand new car and you're gonna not drive it until it falls apart, or want your grandchildren to inherit it, you keep it, like I prefer to keep it up until the warranty expires, which is usually 3 or 4 years. And unless you drive it 50,000 miles a year, it's just mathematically a bad decision to own the car. Oh, unless you want to mod the hell out of it, again, which I really don't. At most, I'll tint the windows and put a dash cam in. So, and when you lease the car, it's literally the only time you can screw a bank legally. So for example, when you're returning your car when the lease is over, and there's a certain price that obviously you can buy that car from the bank, if that price is lower than the market value, which I believe is the case for everybody right now, right? And by a lot, right? If you were to return a leased car right now, it's probably worth $5,000 more. So you can just buy it from the bank and sell it for that money. So you make, let's say, $5,000. But when it's the other way around, when the car is worth less, you just give it to the bank and they have to take the hit. They lose that money. So, but generally speaking, it is by far the better financial decision. And by the way, with electric cars, the $7,500 credit will get calculated into the price. It's almost like it becomes an instant rebate, even if you did not pay $7,500 in federal tax credits. Though I always say, if you didn't pay $7,500 in federal tax credits, you probably shouldn't be buying an expensive or any type of a new car, especially electric car. But even if you didn't, it will still be given to you right away. You don't have to file taxes a year later and stuff like that. And of course, you save money on sales tax because you only pay essentially half of the sales tax.
It's a little bit different for Tesla owners because you don't have that option to actually buy back your electric vehicle at the end of your lease period. But I think it makes a lot of sense when you lease an ID4 or any other electric vehicle, which is
One of many reasons I usually don't recommend to buy a Tesla is because you cannot lease it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you may buy it, but definitely leasing is a bet. So, and it's definitely not as safe as a bet on leasing an ID4. So, what was your down payment and what's your monthly fee?
So I'm trying to remember. So I think I put down about $5,000, and my payments. So my payments also include a bunch of little things that I bought. I bought, I think, the full maintenance schedule. And I think up to $10,000 of damages. So like I'm planning on returning it with bolt tires and half of my doors scratched up and still be fine. And my payments are a little over $400. Now this is because I got it a year ago. At that time, dealerships weren't charging extra $20,000 over MSRP. So but minus the first edition. So.
Yeah, and exactly. I think you're referring to my comment to your explanation yesterday, because I said I was trying to actually recommend an ID4 to one of the best friends. We went to a dealership here in the Bay Area, and what happened eventually, we saw like the price tag, just, oh my God, they're definitely putting some really like thick margins in there. And the base price for like very basic ID4 was 50 plus, and I was like, oh my God, so this cannot happen. But I get it. I mean, in the normal kind of market conditions, it makes full sense.
Let's not forget. I mean, this is Bay Area. Electric cars is a thing here. If you go to a dealership, maybe in the middle of nowhere where they don't really like electric cars, for the lack of a better word, you probably will get a better deal.
Yeah, possibly, highly likely. So it's been roughly a year since you became an owner of ID4. What's your experience so far? What you like, what you dislike, what would you change? Would you recommend this vehicle?
Right. Well, first of all, I've said it many times for the last year, and it's still true today. I actually just did a video about it, and I have to reanalyze it in my head. It is still the best bang for your buck. How much money you're paying and what you're getting out of this. And mind you, mine is a German edition. It was made in Germany. Volkswagen is just about to start producing the ID4s here in America, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I visited that factory last year, and the price will fall to $35,000. That's before tax incentives and any type of other incentives you might have from your state. So the price is actually going to fall, which is very rare. First of all, I love the way it looks. It has all of the features I want, and maybe with the exception of the head-up display, but nothing that I don't. It's well built. It's nice and quiet. It's fourth edition, so I like all the tchotchkes that come with it, and my beautiful snow white steering wheel. And of course, 3 years of unlimited charging at Electrify America. That's just, I love that perk. It's the only other cars that come with it are all over $100,000 that have the same type of a deal, right? Unlimited 3-year free charging at Electrify America. However, I've over the last year, the things that I got really, really, really annoyed with is pretty much have to do with software. I mean, it sounds like Volkswagen either doesn't have software engineers and they just hire them on Fiverr on a daily basis, or they just hire really bad ones. And I've never been shy of telling this to them privately and, of course, on my channel. Their app, even though they just redesigned it, is an embarrassment to all apps, not just car apps. This is really one of the most embarrassing apps that you will find in any store. The software in a car, not only it takes a Windows 95 type of timing to bring it up, it just can't make friends with Android Auto, which causes all kinds of problems. Their voice recognition is complete crap, though it's kind of on par with most other cars. So, and even though they have the over-the-air update technology, I haven't gotten one, and it's been over a year, and it really, really needs one. So I personally don't understand how Herbert Diess, the CEO of Volkswagen, and Scott Keogh, the CEO of Volkswagen Group here in the United States, how they get into those cars. And from what I understand, they use them on a daily basis. Get home and not fire their entire software engineering department because it is embarrassingly bad.
Wow, that's impressive. I mean, obviously, you may probably not expect something like super advanced from a legacy car maker, but you know, that's the new rule of the game. Either you're in or out. So I think it's like the choices they need to make.
The interface on the actual screen in the car is excellent. I mean, it's very simple. You don't need to learn a bunch of stuff. You don't have to go in the million of menus to, you know, change your speed of your fan, or, you know, it's really, really nice and simple to use. I absolutely love that.
Well, that's the traditional, the baseline part, right? So, but we are mostly talking about infotainment, all the types of with routing and navigation. I would assume like Apple CarPlay, and you know, but you don't use Apple, right? So you use Android phones.
Android Auto, yeah.
Exactly. But you know, this kind of seamless experience is obviously adding a lot of value when you're choosing an electric vehicle, because people are actually expecting a smartphone on the wheels, and if it's not the case, then people are like, oh my god, this must be something wrong here. But let's go back to like some hardware things like charging. So you mentioned Electrify America. But what's your like normal charging pattern? Do you charge like overnight at home, or do you go and, you know, always supercharge your car? If you go and supercharge, does it always work, by the way? So that's a good question. I know it's always seamless for Tesla owners, but I need to admit, Tesla is my fifth electric vehicle, and I used to own Nissan Leaf in the past, and having this, connection with a DC fast charger has not been always seamless and nice. So how does it go with ID4?
Right. So I mainly charge at home, obviously, but when I do take small trips, ever since I got the car, so it's a little over a year ago, I've had pretty much no major or even big problems with Electrify America. I think at most I would plug one in and it just kind of start freezing or whatever. I'll just get a cable from the neighboring stall and off we go. So at most I would be delayed by 2 or 3 minutes. But it just gotten better and better and almost seamless now with Electrify America. Now, another thing that I really like, at least at this point, is that I never have to worry about waiting in line, because I just did a segment where I was charging a bunch of Teslas off of the frunk of the F-150 Lightning that has a capability and an adapter to charge a Tesla. And I haven't been at the supercharger location in a while, and this is my first time. And I get there, and there's still 3 or 4 or 5 people waiting. The charging might be seamless, but waiting in line for an extra 20 minutes, let's say, that kind of screws up that experience. And obviously it happens in busy holiday weekends a lot, and in the areas where people are more likely to buy a Tesla, like in Silicon Valley and so forth. But nevertheless, that's one thing that so far I haven't had to deal with, thinking like, oh my god, am I going to stand in line and stuff like that. So, but overall, Electrify America has been better and better, and really it's getting close to perfect, really, when it comes to my experience. But even when I had a gas car, I was lucky enough to had a good income. I drove some nice cars. For example, when I drove to Los Angeles, I never took my 7 Series BMW to Los Angeles next to this, semi trucks and bugs and stuff like that. I would either fly, like what I do now, or I would rent a car and let that car eat all of the little stones and bugs. So, I don't see myself ever traveling for more than 2 or 3 hours one way anywhere, really.
Yeah, you're almost anticipating my next question, because road trips is something that I would say these days Tesla owners can afford, but for other car makers it's going to be a bit more challenging. What's the driving range, the real life driving range on ID4?
So, real life of whom? My real life, your real life? And it depends, right? I mean, my real life when I'm driving at night, when it's cold and windy and I'm stepping on it and it's freeway only, or when it's really nice and hot and I'm just driving around town, all electric cars will have that range. So I'd say the worst I got, like the worst, like just like I said in the first set of conditions, about maybe 180. The EPA rating is 250. But the best I got was pretty close to 250 as well. So I guess on average, I get about 220 of realistic everyday average miles out of this car, which more than plenty for me.
Talking about hardware again, I know like software is a different thing, but did you have any repairs or like maintenance or anything you had to do with this vehicle?
Yeah, so honestly, it was very embarrassing because the first week when I got it, I let Eli Burton, who is the president of one of the Tesla fan clubs, drive it because there was none of them on the road. And as soon as he got behind the wheel, it literally stopped in the middle of the road. I mean, we barely made it, right? So, and at that time, I think it was some pump that went out, right? And I was like, okay, let me see if anybody else has this problem, and then we're going to see if this is something worth mentioning it. It's not like a big safety thing, because when I say it stopped in the middle of the road, it didn't. It just slowly died, right? So, and then after 2-3 months, and even now, I've noticed that it was really just one off, and it was fixed pretty quickly, and that was very unfortunate, and I've never heard anybody else happen. Which is in contrast of what I just discovered with Rivian truck, where one of the owners sent me a picture of the accelerator pedal falling off. I felt like that kind of had to be exposed, right away, and it was possibly a big deal. So, I talked about it on my channel, but again, it didn't seem like it was an actual real problem. So that was a little annoying and embarrassing. But ever since then, besides my annoyance with the Android Auto not working and Volkswagen kind of blaming it on Google and really there's no tools of fixing it, besides that, there's nothing that has gone wrong so far.
Okay, it looks like it's an excellent story of an ID4 ownership. So yesterday you met my older son Mark, and he's actually thinking of buying an electric vehicle. So I'm pretty sure you get this type of questions all the time, but let's try. So what kind of an electric vehicle would you recommend for like an early adopter, young gentleman, trying to, find his way in the automotive world?
You're right. People ask me this question all the time, and I can never answer it. And I think anybody who would give you an answer is just full of crap, because it's like asking, if you were to ask me, hey, which girl he should marry? Well, I don't know. Does he like tall girls, short girls, big girls, small girls, black girls, white girls? You know what I mean? There's just like it's so personal. There were a few. One of the last car reviews that I've done, I try not to do them anymore. I did it in a format of almost if you were to marry or date an electric car, because there's so many things, including chemistry, right? Including safety, that you really need to consider, and it depends on what it is that you want out of it, right? Does he go off-road all the time? Does he travel long distance all the time, or he just goes around town, right? Does he have 7 children that he needs to all put in the car? How much money does he have? How much money does he want to spend on this? Is the free charging a big deal for him or no? So it's just like there's so many things that nobody can answer. I can only tell you what the best car in each category is, right? So for example, the best range. Well, do you really even care for the answer? Because you probably can guess that car, which is
go for Lucid, I'm sure about
right.
that.
So does he have $180,000 to buy it? I don't know, probably not. Most people, even when they do have that money, they just don't want to spend that much money on a car, right? So then the best range or the best charging, which is also Lucid Air, the leaders in each category are unreasonably expensive. So then you now have to toggle all of the things that, maybe it's not the best, maybe it's just very reasonable, right? For example, to me, unless you do nothing but road trips, anything over 200 of realistic miles is just fine. It really, if you charge it overnight, it's very rare where you're going to need to drive for more than 200 miles, and then you can use the fast charging stations, which there are plenty especially around here. So you can never answer that question. It's just about research and about what it is that he needs this car for and how much money does he really have.
Well, this is the answer. So thanks, Alex, for being on my channel. I wish you all best of luck, and maybe we're gonna reconnect once again.
Let's do this again. This was fun.
Thanks.